Okay. So welcome back to my office. We are in the second season, so I have a new vest. But first, I want to address something. Do not ask why I am so frustrated right now. Don't ask. It's none of your business.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
I think it's recording. Yeah, it's recording. Okay, so the vest. This used to be, I told you not to ask why I'm so frustrated. I'm not going to tell you again. The vest. So this used to be all right, fine. If you're going to make an issue out of this, I'll tell you. I already filmed this entire episode, but you may notice that I have a new mic because I'm trying to upgrade your experience with my show. So I bought a new mic and filmed an entire episode, and yeah, my mic was on. Okay, my mic was on, and I tested everything beforehand. So don't, yeah, my mic was on. However, it was turned all the way down. The little blue light was showing. See the little blue light? This light right here. It was showing through the entire video, but the volume was turned down. I do not remember doing this. I think she did.
It wasn't me.
You didn't show your lightning.
No. So technical.
Somebody, and I'm not going to say names, but she's associated with lightning. Somebody turned the mic down when they put it away, and we're supposed to do that. So we're gonna blame her. Anyway, so I'm super frustrated. I was just gonna go on without it, but you guys wouldn't get past it. So now, just can I go on now? Okay, so the vest. This is this season's vest. I call it my battle vest. It's denim. It used to be a black denim jacket. I cut it in the shape of a dress vest, and then I bleached it, and then I dyed it like a wine red. You're gonna notice it's got little cuts all over it. It has a knife that's always in it. And for special occasions, I will just slice into it. So we're gonna do that now. That particular hole right there signifies the first season of, the first episode of the second season that I wear this vest. Okay. Right here, I have a little black cord hanging from my vest. That little black cord used to be the cinch cord of my dojo pants, my gi pants that I wore when I was in martial arts. So to signify that section of my life, I put that on there. This is a chainmail chain fob that was created for me by my friends, who in the book is referred to as T. It used to be part of a chain wallet. This would hang down straight, and then the chain would come around to the wallet. I wanted a little bit of T because she is my alpha reader and one of my best friends in the world. I wanted a little bit of her on here. And I wanted a chain of some kind. So I was really looking forward to looking into that. When this was a black denim jacket, it was a concealed carry. So it's got these huge pockets, big enough to carry a handgun. Of course, anybody who's read my autobiography, and most of you knows that I do not carry a herring gun and never will. So I've got a pocket knife here, and soon I will get another pocket knife here on this side. Probably for a trophy for having finished the book or something. Okay. Last season I showed you pretty much everything on my desk. There's one thing I didn't show you. One little section, it's the lamp. Got a couple of things hanging off my lamp. They're all pretty cool. And I might get into that later, but okay. I'm going to show you a picture of my desk right now. You will see little cards that are laid out on my blotter. Each one of them has the name or an indicator of what is going to be written in a section of the book I'm calling the progenitor. A section of my autobiography I'm calling him progenitor. We'll get into more of that further into the video. So other than that, things are pretty tame, pretty normal. So what I'm going to focus on mainly in this season is just showing you objects from the rest of my office, and telling you a little bit about them. These are all things that if you were here, you would see. Just about everything here has a story behind it. And I'm going to show you the Lady of Fire. Okay, my wife is bringing it to me. This is the Lady of Fire. You'll notice the flaming dress. You'll notice in her hand, she's carrying 2 pieces of flame. And she has fire for wings, okay? And she's standing on a base of fire. So in the books, there's a character named Aaron the Marked, and Aaron fell in love with somebody and they died. And the person he fell in love with was a fire mage. She is very flamey and very cool. Well, we reached a major landmark in Aaron's story, and it was pretty devastating. We were all pretty, it was a pretty rough day. And my alpha reader, T, the one that made this, she's a big, huge fan of Aaron. And she knew what we were going through because she was going through it too. So she put together a care package for us. She sent it to us. It had 2 coffee cups that were built around the color yellow. Everything in the box was built around the color yellow. I mentioned this care package earlier in season 1, where when I was showing you this book right here, because she also sent that for us. That day that I had to write that scene, we also went to a store called Renaissance Books, and we bought her. And in our mind, this is Aaron the Mark's wife. The hair is accurate. The yellow hair is accurate. The dress is accurate. I didn't do anything like these flame wings and like this stuff here, but probably will in the future. And this is her. And this is the item that I'm going to show you from my office this week. I'm going to leave this right here so that you can watch it, look at it through the entire episode. Okay, so we got to talk about my blog for a minute, because this season I'm going to focus on blogs, and most of the season is going to be readings of this particular section of my blog. Okay, so the second volume of my blog has a great deal of me and my wife's love story in it. And the things that tore us apart the first time, how we got back together, and then the things that tore us apart the second time. So I have been releasing what I'm calling blog blasts. I'm calling them blog blasts because I don't know what else to call them. What I do is I pick a series of 20, 23, 15, I don't know how many blogs that I want to put out. And I get them all ready and I schedule them. And I release one every 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think once we did 2.5 hours for The King's Concubine. Once every 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 2.5 hours, I release another one. Usually they last, the first one lasted about 30 hours. The second one, and the second one was 52 hours. The one after that was 54. And basically what this does is it starts you on a story that continues all the way through until it's reached an end. And you can set your clock and keep reading all that time. When you go to bed and you wake up the next night, and the next morning, you'll have 3 to 4 of them sitting there waiting for you. It's a way of carrying my story with you all day and experiencing it all day. So what gave me the idea was I'm super romantic. My wife's super romantic. It gets to be a problem sometimes. And for my birthday, I decided that I wanted to share stories about me and Becca's misfires, all the times when we almost got together but didn't. And they range from the end of my 8th grade, the last day of 8th grade for me.
Right. No.
Last day of 7th grade for her, all the way until like 3 days before we actually got together in 97. So I decided that what I wanted to do is I wanted to share all of them. So we put them all together and released them every 2.5 hours. And we got a really good response for it. A lot of people really appreciated and had fun with what we were doing. A little bit later, we released what's called Guardians War. Now, what we may not have talked about yet, or which we may have touched but not really explained very much, is that I have DID. It's called Associative Identity Disorder. Some people still call it by its own old name, and that's multiple personalities. So there's a lot of different minds in here and a lot of different people in here, shades of myself and images of myself and the personalities. We all have different goals. We all have different things, and we all love my wife in different ways. she has to keep a separate relationship with all of these people. I call them people because they are like people to me. She has to keep them all together. She has to be able to identify them on site. It's actually pretty intense. Can you come over here and
Sure.
maybe talk a little bit about what it's like to live with somebody that has DID?
Hey, okay, well, it's basically like one of the main rules is to be really flexible. So we have like parts of the day that fit a certain kind of routine, and then there's always some built-in flexibility because anytime somebody comes out, we have to be ready to see what they're thinking and what they're there for and what they want to do. Oh yeah, am I talking about it?
I don't know.
So yeah, so basically we have a kind of routine that our day is, that's built into our day, and then there's a lot of flexibility and downtime that's built into it in different places. So it's a very like spontaneous kind of living, because it is like living in the present moment. You get to see who you're dealing with and what they want to do and what is important to them, you know, that day. And
The kids all have different relationships with them too, and they all
there's
the kids know them and talk to them, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's gotten to the point where the kids, when they step out and and speak, the kids know who they're talking to.
Yeah, there's certain alters that come out around the kids that are have more of a relationship than others. There's some alters that don't come out around the kids at all, and like it makes sense. Basically, the way that I look at it is that each alter is a kind of exaggerated form of just like one part of his mind. So so getting to know each alter and spending time with each alter is just like a different kind of intimacy with that part of his consciousness. So it's something that we have learned how to manage over several years, and we like over the years, every time we need to, we try something that works until it doesn't work anymore, and then we change it and figure out what works instead. So
yeah, and sometimes those adjustments last for a month. Sometimes we'll try something new and it'll last for years. We just basically have to keep on our toes and recognize when something's not healthy or working anymore, and then change it into some new form of a life for us. So
yeah, so there's like no such thing as getting stuck in a rut, basically, because whenever we have to have a kind of awareness for whenever, you know, things aren't working very effectively anymore, or there's, you know, unrest among the organization or whatever, then we just sit down and talk about it. And luckily we get along great, and we know how to communicate, and we practice that a lot. And so we're really good at sitting down and talking about what's working and what's not working, and figuring out what would help and all that kind of stuff. So
okay,
thank
you. Now I got to put the flaming lady back. Okay. So, Guardians War is about a time in my life where I was at war with evil, and that war cost me everything. It cost me my college career, it cost me my job, it cost me Becca, my house. I was homeless. It cost me everything, and it was a thing where I didn't regret it and would have done it again. So that shows like the span of that time. It was a span of a year, So, so if you go to my blog, you'll find, and I'll link it down below. If you go to my blog, you'll find blogs in there called Guardians War 1 through I think 23. So a couple weeks later, I did another blog blast. This one started, it was called New Girl, and it started when me and Becca got together in 97. And it showed all of our early stuff, and it showed how we broke up. So so that was how that was what the third blog blast was. So there's 3 more that I've planned, and what we're going to do is we're going to walk through one of them. We're going to see the aftermath of Guardians War. So I'm going to be doing readings from my autobiography that take place after Guardians War, showing you exactly what happened after the breakdown in my life and how I put myself back together again and became what I am now. So I'm going to do all the readings, and then at the end, I'm going to release the blog blast. Okay. So tonight we're going to do the first of those readings. We're going to start with one called Fellow Warrior. And I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but we will talk about it later. We'll talk about it after I do the reading. And then we're going to talk about the Bramble situation a little bit. I'll bring you up to date on what that is, and I'll tell you about the intriguing bit of information that we have found out. Yeah, so let's get started. Okay, so I got a new drink, and I found what I'm going to read to you today. This is not very long, even though this is probably, besides my wife, the most important person I've ever met. When you're looking at who I turned out to be. So we're going to read it. It's called The Fellow Warrior. This happened after the complete breakdown of my life. The Fellow Warrior. We can't talk about the man I am, the man I was, or the way we crossed that distance without talking about Stephen. He was my priest, my teacher, my coach, and my father. He was never a friend, and I never saw him outside of his office, yet he walks with me every day. He was my therapist. He was the most important influence on my life that can be named besides Becca, and he thought I was crazy the first time I met him. It is a moment he swears he'll never forget, and one that we have talked about many times. He was not the one I was referred to. I was admitted to a psych ward in Columbia for bipolar, and when I got out, they referred me to a female therapist here in Springfield. However, when I finally called to make the appointment, the woman's schedule was full for 6 months out, so they sent me to Stephen. I remember when he walked into the waiting room to get me, I summed him up real fast as powerful, capable, smart, but he did not look kind. This man was kind, to be sure, but he was not there for that. This was a man on a mission. He walked like it, talked like it, in every way carried himself as a man possessed. He called my name and I came to him. I looked at him and he said, "Right this way." He motioned me forward and I waved him on. He walked to his office and I followed. I wanted a better look at him. Guardian wanted to see the man walk. See, Guardian can tell a lot from a man's walk, can tell if he's just a big man or if this man is a fighter. His initial assessment would be proven correct later when Stephen confessed to having been formerly trained in a martial art. Guardian knew this man could kick ass if he needed to, even though his hair was silver. and he was obviously past his prime. The man walked into his office and Guardian followed. He did not close the door. Guardian was not sure if he was staying yet. He walked around the room looking at pictures, a water bird mid-flights, a small plane sitting on a shelf. He had an odd fish. It looked like a child's toy on his desk. Guardian looked it over and guessed correctly that it was from a child patient Stephen had once treated. He looked at every nuance of the man's office before his eyes scanned the diploma on the wall and saw that it was from Florida, Southern. I have only one question to ask you that will determine whether I walk out of that door or close it, Guardian said. Well, let's hear it. You'll call it the War of Northern Aggression or the War of the Rebellion, Guardian said. He had sat through all the history classes in college. He had spoken to a lot of Southerners, had a real grasp on the fact that to many that war was never going to be over. He was not interested in that at all. A nation divided cannot stand in Guardian's head. Ironic and tragic as it is, he firmly believes that. So he turned to this man he had just met and stared him in the eye. I believe they called it the Civil War, Stephen said. Guardian closed the door and shook Stephen's hand. It is today, to this day, the most important moment in my entire life. Without a doubt, I would neither be alive or sane right now without this man. The two of us fought for 7 years to make it right. Then I moved to Milwaukee. When I came back, I went to Stephen for another 7 years. I gave this man's 14 years of my life, my mind, and my horrors, and he gave me back everything in my life. When I was talked down to about my abuse, I came to him one day and asked him to tell me how bad it really was. A man I thought was a friend had said the day before that I was kind of whining. The not friend told me to suck it up. I came to Stephen and asked him how bad it really was. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was my abuse? This is long before we discovered the altars, before the DID became a focus. I had no way of knowing how bad this really was. Stephen picked up my file, which at this point was over 4 inches thick, and he closed it and laid it on his desk. 1 to 10 is bullshit. I won't play that game. I can tell you this. He tapped his finger on the folder. If I were to take this file to an FBI profiler, and they spent the week reading it, when they were done, the first question they would ask is, how many victims? How many victims has this serial killer killed? Jesse, it is not that this is bad. This is so bad that I don't know how to quantify it. I've been doing this job for 20 years and I've never dealt with horror like this. You've taken my cherry on certain things, been tortured in ways I didn't know a human can withstand. It's not that your abuse and your life was bad that has me in shock. It's that you survived it without killing anyone. Every day that I walk into this office with you, I expect to hear about a time when you lost control and you killed someone. Every time. Don't tell me there isn't a murder in there. We've not found the bottom of that barrel, and I can tell you without a moment's hesitation if we find one. I can't report it, and if they ever caught you, it wouldn't. For it, my testimony would get you off. Well, we dug to the bottom of that barrel. We never found a murder. But I knew then that my life read like a serial killer. It stuck with me how? How had I never killed anyone? How was I able to trust and love? How was I able to make relationships and keep them? When we found the altars, I had my answer. Assassin, Shadow, Jack, the Dark Ones, that had taken all of the hate they had been given and embraced it, had taken all the hate they had been given and embraced it, leaving the child, servant, guardian, and many others to purity and hope. I had monsters. They were my sin eaters. They were my darkness eaters. It is because of them that I am who I am. They made this life possible. But here I go, getting ahead of myself again. All right, so that's Fellow Warrior. That's the first of the readings that I'm going to do for you this season. I think there's 10 of them. Now our season is 13 episodes long. This is going to be an extremely intense season, as you could probably tell from what I just read. It's going to be a very intense season, but there's a couple of things that I'm going to throw in there. One, we're going to talk to the mighty Megan Mackey. Her name's Megan Mackey. She writes urban fantasy, and she's one of my friends. She's an amazing person. You're going to love her the moment you see her. And we're going to talk about conventions and what it's like to sell at a convention and what it's like to just experience a fantasy convention, a comic convention, anything like that. I've been to many of them, and I've sold and enjoyed myself every time. So I got her. She's got a lot more experience than me. She's got much better stories. And we're going to have her on, and we're going to take a look at what she knows, hopefully this season. The other thing is, last season, I talked a lot about a writer named M.L. Spencer, who is a good friend of mine. I talked about her a lot. I talked about her influence on me and our friendship. And in the finale of last season, she came on and talked to us for about 15-20 minutes, maybe. She was supposed to be there the whole time, but she had some kind of accident. So I'm going to have her on, and we're going to talk to her. Also, I will hopefully have all the answers that I need to create a story about a video about Bramble and whether he's my father or not. We're going to talk about that pretty soon here. Let me take a break, and we'll talk about what I just read, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Okay. Well, that was the reading. That was Fellow Warrior. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't have to go into a long explanation of it. There are some mentions of some names that I do want to get into, because they are the names of altars. First of all, it starts in the mindset of Guardian. Guardian's the one that walks in the office. He's the one that asks the famous question. He's the one that, all that kind of stuff. Guardian was created to protect my sister Les, who is harmful and abusive, and we don't let in our life anymore. He was created by our abuser for that purpose. Set up for failure, because nobody could have kept her safe. Guardian spent his life in protection, and he still does. He still does. He's the guy who goes around every night and makes sure all the doors are locked and double locked. He carries a knife on him at all times, a pocket knife at all times. He is just that kind of guy. He's a bit of a romantic. Had a lot of girlfriends when we were growing up. He's completely devoted to my wife. If you read Guardian's War, you'll find out that he at one time had a dog. Her name was Catherine. She saved his life, and he loves her more than any other creature that he, besides my wife, that he ever knew. So you can find out more about Guardian and Catherine during this season. You're going to read about Catherine. You're going to hear about Catherine. I'm going to leave some links in the description below about Catherine and Guardian and the whole thing. So then you heard talk about the names Jack, Assassin, and Shadow. The Jack we're talking about is Smilin Jack. And if you want to read about him, there's a series in my blogs about him that I'm also going to link. Are you writing this down? That I'm also going to link in I'm also going to link in the direct descriptions down below. I'll tell. Can you write down the stuff that I'm talking about, Lincoln? I will forget. I'm also going to link some stuff about Jack. His full name is Smilin Jack, and he's pretty intense. So he's also an alter. And then we talk about Shadow. Shadow was a punk teenager, petty criminal that never got caught. Shadow was created at a time when we met somebody who was pretty chaotic, and he was the only friend we had. So we had to be able to match him. All of that is in the autobiography, the first volume, Teardrop. Shadow's pretty prevalent through my entire story. And Shadow has been called Guardian's nemesis. The nemesis relationship is something I'm fascinated with. You have two forces, one on one side of the spectrum, one on the other, that are held apart from their beliefs, by their beliefs, and how they view certain things. But if they did not have that between them, the nemesis relationship between one person and the other would disappear, and they would become close confidants and best friends. For most of my life, Guardian and Shadow had the nemesis relationship. They were nemesis. And they like to continue to call themselves that, but they've reached a peace together. So I'm gonna do something kind of weird. I'm gonna step aside, and I'm going to let Shadow come in and talk to you a minute about Guardian and the story that he has about their relationship now. And we'll go from there. Okay, so here comes Shadow. All right, Guardian. So fuck that guy. All right, so years and years and years ago, so like we I got into Hardee's thick burgers, right? And so the day of the night that Tobin was born, I went to go get a Hardee's thick burger, and somebody came out and ate it before I got it. And I was like, fuck that guy, you know, like, fuck that guy. And I tried to like, I tried to get one ever since, and I couldn't. So this dude, Guardian, takes me to Hardee's a couple weeks ago, right? And he's like, he buys me a thick burger, right? Hands it to me. It's so cool. I'm gonna get a thick burger. I'm super excited. I open it up. I get the burger in my hands. Lettuce, tomato, bacon. He added bacon, but no fucking patty. This guy had ordered it with no patty on it. So like, no patty. So I was pissed. And then I realized that he had parked so that I could eat it in the restaurant's parking lot. So he knew I was going to have to go back through the line. Not only that, but he parked in a place where all I had to do was pull out and I was back in the drive-through line. I was so fucked up, man. I was so pissed off. So, yeah. So I went through the drive-through, and of course, like I got my new burger and I ate it, but like that's the kind of shit that's going on now. It used to be I'm trying to ruin his relationships, he's trying to ruin mine, but now it's like this petty, like this motherfucker, he buys me a burger with no patty kind of thing going on. So that's what happens. Back over here, she says it was an honest mistake. It was an honest mistake. But you and I both know that wasn't an honest mistake because the guy added bacon. So, and he parked right next to the drive-thru and he stayed in the restaurant parking lot. This dude knows exactly what he's doing to fuck me over. So that's the kind of petty bullshit that like me and Guardian are going through right now. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're who fucking said it? Shade said that the best way to describe us is, have you seen the movie Grumpy Old Men? It's got two old guys in it. Anyway, they live next door, they can't stand each other, they spend all their time fucking with each other and doing random bullshit to each other. I remember they went ice fishing and one of the guys takes his fish and throws it in the backseat of the other guy's car so that it reeks of fish, this kind of stuff. I'm gonna end up spending the rest of my fucking life doing that kind of shit to him. So basically, I've got a revenge thing I gotta do. I gotta do this fucking revenge thing. I gotta find a way to fuck Guardian over that's equal to ordering him a pattyless burger. So, yeah, if you got any ideas on how I can stick it to this guy, put them in the comments, and I'll let you know how it goes if I actually do it. All right, cool. I'm gonna take off. Cool. Yeah. Okay, so that was Shadow. He's exaggeration of everything funny and foul. So he's part of the reason why we didn't turn out to be a monster. We had darkness that was contained within these three and more different altars, and the rest of us could live a life of purity with healthier relationships and stuff like that. And it made it so that I'm not a serial killer. That's what we found out. So, okay, so that's my description of fellow warrior, and I'm going to let you, I'm going to take a break and we're going to talk about Bramble. So, okay, so there is an ongoing story with this channel. 4th episode of last season, I released a video called Gondik Iron Spine. And Gondik Iron Spine is about the idea that came to my wife after hearing me talk about a scene from a book I was editing, that the guy that I was told all my life was my father was not. And that maybe my mother had an affair with somebody that she considered her soulmate. And like what that would mean. Every episode from episode 4 to episode 13, I brought a new piece of information that I had that talked about those things and talked about why it was becoming more and more obvious that that was true. So, so I have an update. I don't have an answer yet, but if you think really hard about this, you could see it's an answer. So, right after episode 4, or right around the time it was released, I sent DNA to Ancestry.com to get an answer. And we waited for 8 weeks. At the end of 8 weeks, they told us that the sample was contaminated and we had to do it again. So I'm looking at another 8 weeks of waiting. So that was a major setback and it really upset me. And so we decided to go with 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Well, Ancestry got a hold of us today, which is actually Tuesday. And I'm filming this on Tuesday. They got a hold of me today and they said that they still had 4 weeks. They had gotten to a stage where they had 4 more weeks before they were going to get it to us. However, last week, after we released the blog blast for New Girl, like 5 minutes after the last one fell, the last blog fell, we got answers from 23andMe. So we got a list of names that were relations to me. A lot of them were from my mother's side, verifying that my grandfather on my mother's side was actually my grandfather, and my grandmother on my mother's side was actually my grandmother. So there was no infidelity when the creation of my mom was made. But it did not have Char's family name in it, which is the guy I was told was my father and was my abuser. And it did not have Bramble's name. It did not have Bramble's last name in it. So I got no answers as far as that goes. However, it did have a breakdown of nationality. And I found out that I am 100% Northern European. I had no other blood in me. Mainly French and German, with a dash of British and a dash of Irish. And it went all the way back to 0.7% of my blood and my ethnicity tied to Eastern European. This means nothing except that Char, the guy who I was told was my father, his mother was, well, what I was always told was full-blooded Cherokee. Char told me in a conversation I cannot forget because of what else happened on that trip, makes this conversation memorable. And he told me that we did have Native American in us. My mother always told me that Char's mother was full-blooded Cherokee. I remember seeing her. I remember her dark skin. I remember her black hair. The fact is that all of Char's brothers and sisters, with the exception of one, had dark skin and black hair. The one that didn't is rumored, whispered to be the result of a different union. We don't know for sure if that's actually her son. But we can say for certain that all of the children that can be tied to her, including Char, have dark skin and black hair. Char looks like he comes from his mother's loins, which means that I should have some Native and American blood in my system. The fact that I don't is damning evidence for anybody who wants to make the case that I am actually Char's son. So the blood doesn't match. The authenticity doesn't match. Nationalities, none of that matches. I'm full-blood Northern European with the tiniest dash of Eastern European, and I have no Native American blood in me whatsoever. There's a thing, I talked to a guy, there's a thing where a lot of people are lied to and told that they have Cherokee blood when they don't. I guess you can Google fake jerky and thousands of stories or more will pop up. So maybe I was lied to that she wasn't Cherokee. However, she was something. She was either full-blooded Cherokee, or she was a different kind of Native American, or she was a full-blooded Mexican or Hungarian, or there was some ethnicity in her body that caused her to have very dark skin and very dark hair and black hair. And none of that comes from Northern Europe. The fact is, I simply cannot be related to any of her children. And I was told all my life that I was. I was told all my life that one of her children was my father. So I know I don't come from Char's family. We don't have firm data yet that I am actually Bramble's son. But we do know for sure that I'm not Char's. Maybe my mom cheated with a different guy, and it wasn't Bramble. The only thing is, my mom's a romantic, hopeless romantic, and her only true love her entire life was Bramble. And she would not have given herself away to another man. So the only other argument against anybody but Bramble is that she was assaulted, which is possible. However, the way she treated me, the way she talked to me, and the way she always told me stories about Bramble lead me to believe otherwise. Also, I knew all of her darkness and I knew all of her bad memories, and I helped her through them all because we had that kind of relationship. Anytime she had any kind of darkness or horror in her life, she brought it to me. I know this woman very, very well. So I would be shocked if I was anything but Bramble's son. To the point where she raised me like I was Bramble's son. And she treated me like she would treat the child of her soulmate. So I have DNA evidence that I do not belong to Char. And I am working on finding evidence that the person that I do belong to is Bramble. There is a man I've mentioned in last season. His name is Uncle Sly in my autobiography. And I got a hold of him. Great guy. Still wants to be in my life. Was totally shocked when he found out that it was possible that Bramble was my father. Well, I gave him the proof that Char's not, and he is going to talk to Bramble's relatives and try to get a DNA sample from them. He is going to do his best to help me prove this or disprove this, and then he's gonna be in my life either way. He's a great man. The more I talk to him on our little phone calls, the more I realize that I want this man in my life. I want my sons to know him. So Uncle Sly is an important part of this, and he's getting involved. So yeah, that's my update on the Bramble situation. Okay, so like in last season, the first episode of last season, I told you that I hate saying subscribe and comment and like and notify and all that kind of stuff. My word for it is do the things. So do the things. And this is coming out Friday, and it's going to come out. There's going to be one every Friday for the next 13 weeks. And we're going to explore more of my autobiography, talk to a few cool people, and have some answers on this question that has stretched all the way through last season and now into this one. So I will see you next week, and I hope you're well. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.